Welcome to the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm Morgan, and I'm thrilled to be your host and wellness coach as we navigate the path to a healthier, more confident you. As the owner of Get Fit With Me, I bring years of experience in personal training, nutrition, and coaching to each episode. Join me as we explore practical tips and strategies for fitness, nutrition, mindset, and more, all tailored for busy women just like you. Let's empower your wellness journey and achieve lasting transformation together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an episode of the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm your host and coach, Morgan Ekovich. And I want to thank you for tuning in today as we've officially moved into March. And I don't know about you, but I find that when it is March, at least here in Michigan, there's a little bit more hope that the snow is going to start to go away, that it's going to get a little bit warmer, and that we're just about ready to hit springtime. Sometimes that means we do go the other way and we continue to get a lot of snow and it is really cold, but like March is that little bit of hope that comes through when January and February are terrible. So if you feel the same way I do, I'm pushing through hoping we have a great spring. And as we transition into that springtime, one of the most challenging things that I notice myself and my clients having is life is crazy, and in a season where there is change, where there is a transition, it is hard to stay up on our nutrition. We retreat or fall back into some of our old, I'm going to say bad habits with quotations, because I don't think there's bad habits. There's just habits that we can be better at. And that's eating out, that's having more frozen meals, that's not doing as much fresh and home cooked meals. And sometimes that's just what it has to look like. But if that's how it has to look like, there's ways that we can still implement the basics of the nutrition that we know that we need to be doing, which a lot of times during this time of the year, when we have these transitional periods, that we kind of give ourselves permission to say, oh, I'll catch back up on it when things slow down. And I want to get ahead of that because you may have spring break coming up. You may just have a family road trip coming up. You may just be at home and knowing that you have been stuck at home with sick kids for the last 2.5 months. Whatever your situation is and you are just like, I'm just so tired of doing the basics, we need to keep doing them. And I'm going to show you some ways today that we can make sure that we're doing them that don't feel overwhelming, because that's the biggest thing is we're overwhelmed, we're stressed, we're exhausted. We feel like there's 1,000 things to be doing. That the goal of this is that we don't have to feel like we are expending more energy than we have available. So before we dive into that, I wanted to share that part of the reason that this episode is going to be great is I traveled last month for the first time this year, which is crazy that I did not travel in January, but I traveled last month and it was amazing. And I did send out a few emails letting you guys know what I did prior to my trip, during my trip, and after my trip to keep me on track. But now I have another trip in about 5 days. I'm headed out to Wisconsin, headed out to Madison, Wisconsin to work with PDPW at their business conference. It's a huge conference they put on for anybody in the dairy and ag industry. So whether they're a farmer, they work for a company that's ag related, any of those people can come. It's a spot for them to come and learn and grow themselves and grow their businesses and their farms. They've brought me in for the last 2 years. This will be my 3rd year to come and talk about nutrition and exercise for humans. Because one of the things that we have noticed, and whether you are familiar with the industry or not, is you've probably noticed that generational farms are starting to decline. Younger generations are not wanting to take over those farms, and we need people in those industries, which means our grandparents, our aunts, or uncles are working longer into their life than they anticipated. And when they can't take care of their nutrition or their body hurts because they haven't done the proper stretching and strengthening and they have these injuries, like that's going to hurt themselves in the farm. So PDPW has brought me in to help share the information and help these individuals implement good nutritional habits for themselves and good exercise habits for themselves that fit with their bodies and their lifestyles. And one of the reasons I thought this episode timed up so perfectly is, I don't know if you've ever met a dairy farmer, but they are one of the most busy people in the world. And it's because they have so many balls in the air, just like you listening. You have your kids, your animals, your house, your work, your spouse, the car. You have all these moving parts in your life that sometimes they're pretty balanced and they're rolling good. And then sometimes life throws a curveball and all of them are up in the air and you're trying to figure out which one do I catch, which one if I let drop is going to cause the least amount of damage. And a lot of the times the ball that we let drop is ourself because, oh, it's just us. I'll figure it out down the road when it works. So as we move into, I'm going to be traveling next week, and travel for me, I've been doing it so much, but travel for me can still be a little chaotic when it comes to meals. I have all the tools in my tool belt, but it's still, I have to have these reminders. So we're going to talk through some of that today, really first dialing into those basics of nutrition. Because when we talk about basics of nutrition, remember, we want to make sure we've got high quality proteins, we want to make sure we're having healthy fats, and we want to make sure we're getting carbohydrates. And not just carbohydrates in the form of pastas and rices and potatoes, but we also want carbohydrates in the form of fruits and vegetables. But that doesn't mean we only want carbohydrates in the form of fruits and vegetables. We want a good balance between it. So one of the things we need to remember is no matter the time or the season you are in, no matter how chaotic or calm it is, we want to make sure that we can dial in and we can clearly look down at our plate and say, okay, I have a high quality protein, I have a healthy fat, whether that's the oil I cooked my meal in or you're actually adding a healthy fat to it. And then I have a carbohydrate of some sort, whether it's a fruit, a vegetable, or an actual starchy carb. Does not matter. If, though, you're looking down and you notice you're always getting a pasta and you're not getting those fruits and vegetables, just start to do some swaps. We've talked about this in some other episodes, and we will continue to talk about this because I don't know how many times we have to hear it for it to actually stick. And then once it sticks, we actually have to start to implement. So some of the things you're going to hear me talk about today are things that you've probably heard me say, but you're not implementing yet. You've heard me say it, you're like, yep, I need to do it, but you're not implementing. So today we're going to talk about that implementation factor that if you're there, I really want you to dial in on, yep, that's what I need to be doing. So don't go ahead and feel like you have to take all of today on. I want you to first start by just figuring out like what stage are you in and where do you need to be. So when we talk about the basics of nutrition, like I said, we want to make sure we have a high quality protein, we want to make sure we've got healthy fats, and we want to make sure we've got carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, starchy carbs, things like that, all in a great mixture and balance throughout our day. Personally, I find with myself and my clients, if we front load our protein, a lot of women don't like to eat breakfast. We like to live off of the coffee and not eat breakfast. We want to make sure we're getting a really hearty, healthy breakfast in the morning. I aim for 30 grams of protein right away in the morning when I start. What that does is it gives me the energy when my body needs it. A lot of us, we have really big dinners. Well, when we have a really big dinner, that may be just like out of habit, but when we have a really big dinner and we give our body all this energy and then we just go sit or we go directly to bed, we're not giving our body a chance to actually burn that energy and use that energy. Whereas if we were to front load our proteins, front load our calories to kind of to say the best, is our body's going to use those throughout the day as we continue to maybe just be a general human, just move how we need to move. Or if you have a workout, it's going to give you that energy sooner. So I want you to think about, how do your meals look right now? Are you somebody who only eats one meal and it's at night? Are you somebody who eats a bigger meal around lunchtime? Are you a more breakfast? Or are you that bigger meal at dinner time? And is that bigger meal because it's out of habit? Or is it because you've ate so little throughout the day that your body's like, I need food, give me food. I'm going to eat everything and anything in my way. So when we think about that, you're looking down at your plate, you're figuring out, do you have the things? Then I want you to start getting an idea of what is your day looking like? Do we need to eat more at the beginning of our day to give ourselves energy? Or is it okay that we have a little bit more balance throughout the day? Maybe you've got just a very light and office work day where you're like, I'm not running around, I don't have a workout plan, I'm just doing my general life. Little small balanced meals is probably the best to keep that energy sustained. If you're like, hey, we're going to be getting in the car and we're going to be driving, you need that energy, so maybe you need that bigger meal at the end of the night. That is something you need to think about as travel is happening. Because what happens is a lot of us do get travel anxiety, and for some of us that means we can eat a lot, we get anxious and we want to eat, or we just won't eat. And it's important that we are fueling our body and having things on hand that we can snack on that we know our stomach and our bodies appreciate during those times. So if you are somebody who gets a little travel anxiety, because like I said, some of you may be getting ready to go on spring breaks, whether it's this month or next month, making sure you've got some things that will settle your stomach, that will make sure that okay, I know when I eat greasy foods, it doesn't make me feel good already. And then when I'm a little uneasy, it makes it worse. What can we pack? Can I look for a salad? Can I look for fresh veggies and hummus? Can I pack my own to make sure that I'm eating the things that make my body feel good instead of just putting myself more in a hole? So as we talk about that, I'm going to move into portable nutrient-dense foods. So one of the biggest ones that I really like is going to be trail mix. You can get trail mix a variety of ways. You can get trail mix where there is a ton of candy and sugars and added sugars in there, or you can get it where it's mostly nuts with just a little bit of chocolate or cranberries and sugar like that. I recommend going more for the nuts with the more natural sugars. If you do get chocolate chunks in there, it is going to be added sugar. But when you are looking for your trail mixes, looking for something that has the least amount of added sugar and more of just that natural sugar. And you can look at that on the label. Reason being is nuts are a really good source of, yes, there's protein in them. I wouldn't classify them as high protein, but there's protein in them. That's a really good healthy fat. And if you get any sort of fruit or chocolate in there, that's your carbohydrate. It ends up creating a really nutrient dense and yummy and filling snack. And depending on your flavor palette, you can typically choose a variety. Like you can get some with banana chips, you can get some with cranberries, you can get some with chocolate, you can get some with caramel. There's so many different trail mixes. Target's got some really good ones. I'm going to say they're probably more on the sugary side, but Aldi's got a wide variety, or even just a bag of mixed nuts. Like things like that are really great things to have on hand. You can get individual packets, or you can get a big bag and pre-portion them out on your own. Doesn't matter. So another really great option is hard-boiled eggs with crackers and hummus, or hard-boiled eggs with avocado and some everything bagel seasoning and maybe some crackers or some pretzels. Because right there you've got your protein in your eggs, you've got your healthy fats in your avocado, and then in those crackers or those pretzels, you've got your carbohydrate. So that's a way to create a really nutrient-dense, healthy, high-protein snack. You can add some cottage cheese to that. I do understand that if you're traveling, hard-boiled eggs is probably not the best idea because you need to keep them cold. But if you're at home and you're just like, I'm really struggling with snacks, I need something just that is going to fill me up, grab that. Throw in some veggies with it too. I have a client right now, she sends me pictures of her lunch and it's like hummus with peppers and carrots and cheese and salami. She makes this whole mini charcuterie board for herself for lunch, and I love it because it has so much color, so much variety. It looks delicious. She says it tastes really good, and it keeps it from getting boring of, okay, I'm eating broccoli. Okay, I'm eating broccoli. No, she switches it up. She does those little peppers one day. She does carrots one day. She does cucumbers one day. Maybe we switch up our hummus. I love red pepper hummus. That's my new thing that I'm into right now. As I'm doing that with my eggs in the morning on sourdough instead of my goat cheese. Just because every once in a while, I don't need to veer too far away from my basics and the things that make my body feel good, but I want a different flavor. And hummus makes my body feel just as good as honey goat cheese does. Another really good one that you can do either on the go, depending on what you've got available. You can get the single serve Greek yogurts, and you can get a thing of berries, or you can pack some of those nuts and you can throw some of that in there. Or if you're at home, that's a really great afternoon snack or morning snack. That's been my new afternoon snack type of go-to is I do some plain Greek yogurt, I throw some cashews in there, and then I bought blueberries and strawberries recently that I kind of switch which one I use depending on the day, which one's starting to go a little bit bad quicker because I feel like berries kind of hit and miss if you can keep them in your fridge for a long time. But think about making snacks and having things readily available that are high protein, that are healthy fats, and that are also a carbohydrate, because your body needs those carbohydrates to make our brain think. And a lot of times as women, we tend to cut out carbs. And I'm doing a lot of reading on keto diets and fasting for women. And a lot of those studies, the reason they work so well on men is because the studies have been done on men and they haven't been done on females. So I'm in the process of reading a few different books right now on it. And I'm finding it very interesting that a lot of these diets and these fads out there that we tend to go to when we're looking for weight loss are trends and fads that they haven't tested and done research on women for. So when they say do a fasting for this amount of hours, it's not for us. And there's a reason that they're not working, is because they haven't tested it and done research around it for women. There's a lot of research out there, and they do a lot of it on men, and they don't do it on females. So with that, really just get back to the basics of eating, the basics of fueling your body in the way that feels good. So now that we've talked about nutrient-dense food and what your plate needs to look like, I want to talk about one more thing about that before we move into hydration. And it's looking down at your plate. I already said you're going to look down and you're going to make sure you've got all the things necessary. The other thing you need to remember is you don't need a measuring cup and you don't need a scale to be able to look at portion sizes. And a lot of times we forget that. So when you look down at your plate and you, for instance, you're at Olive Garden. I don't know why this example always pops up to me, but you're at Olive Garden and you have chicken Parmesan or chicken Alfredo. Let's use chicken Alfredo. And you've got this big, massive bowl. And you've got all your sauce that covers it. You've got those noodles. And then you got this itty bitty piece of chicken on top. So looking down at that, it's important to know that the palm of your hand is the size of a serving of protein. It's like the size of a deck of cards. A fist is a carbohydrate. A thumb is going to be your healthy fats. So when you think about it, that protein, you're probably getting that serving of protein. But what you are also getting is probably 2 to 5 fists of pasta in that dish, which is not bad. But what's going to happen is, because that ratio is essentially 1 protein to 5 carbs, your body is going to have that blood sugar spike and then that crash like we've talked about before. And that's why we end up feeling very full and then very tired, because we get that energy while we're eating and then we feel very full and then we crash. Whereas if we ask for extra chicken to help balance it out, or we can ask for a to-go box and portion out some of that pasta. I know it's really hard when you're sitting there to actually physically be like, oh, I'm only gonna eat a balanced amount of pasta. I can guarantee there's a reason I only cook a serving for Mike and I at a time. Because pasta is addicting. Whether it's chickpea pasta or homemade pasta, whatever it is, pasta is just great. So we can sit there and eat it all. So what I want you to do is, if you find yourself in a situation, I'm not saying don't order the item. What I'm saying is just start to become aware of knowing what your hand measures. And am I getting, no, that's not a deck of cards. That's not a palm size of protein. I should probably make sure that I order something else, or I make sure I get a little bit more later on. Because remember, as women, we tend to undereat on our protein. I know protein is everywhere in social media right now, and you may be thinking, I feel like I'm eating way too much protein. You don't know until you track. So track your protein, track your food. If you are unsure of what is happening, you can go back to episode 3, where we talk about you need to first track and create a baseline before we start to make changes. That's what I have every single one of my clients do before we make changes to their diet. If you're really resistant to tracking, I really encourage you just really getting familiar with your palm, your fist, and your thumb, and starting to decide, what do your meals look like? Are you getting things in there? Are we overeating on some things? Or are we kind of okay, I feel like I'm doing a good job of finding a balance? So whatever that looks like, your hands are always going to be with you. Use those to measure your food when you're on the go. It's going to help bring you back to when you're at that restaurant and you're like, I'm going to order this. And you're like, okay, I think I have a good placement of all of the things. So as we kind of talk about hydration, so we talked about our plate, we talked about nutrition quite a bit here. We're going to talk about hydration. When we travel, when life is chaotic, when water gets boring, we tend to find all these other things, such as our coffee, our flavored drinks, cocktails, mocktails, all the things. So if you know you are going to be headed out and you're going to be having cocktails and mocktails and things like that, really try and make sure that you front load your water at the beginning of your day. Start your morning with your coffee. Before you have coffee, have water. Go ahead, start drinking your water in the morning. What that's going to do is it's going to make sure you're hydrated and that you don't have to play catch up at the end of the night. And the easiest way to do this when you're traveling is to grab a case of water or two. 1, have your reusable water bottle, because if you're in an airport, a train station, wherever that is, there's most likely a spot to refill it. And because you like that water bottle, you're going to continue to drink out of it. I do not recommend taking your Stanley on the plane. It does not end well. Water goes everywhere. But if you're in the car, grab a case of water, grab a gallon of water, keep it in the back, and when yours runs out, pull over, fill it, or say, hey, can you grab me another bottle of water? That right there is going to be the easiest way to make sure that you are getting your hydration in without the, oh, I ran out of water, we don't have a spot to stop, whatever that looks like. Take the excuses out of it, set up a plan, be prepared. You've been going through life for how many years? You know how to survive. You know how to create a plan. Now execute that plan. Be prepared. If we don't plan for things, I always pack my gym shoes and I always pack workout clothes when I travel. Does that mean I'm going to work out? No. But that means that I have the tools necessary. So if I choose to, I'm not like, oh, well, I can't do it now because I didn't come prepared. No, come prepared. Because you may feel so unmotivated for the longest time, and that motivation may spark, and you may be like, yeah, I'm ready to do something. And if you don't have the tools available, that right there is another, oh, I just won't do it. No, do it. Have the tools, be prepared. So as we kind of move on, I wanted to share a few more things here before we wrap up. And life is chaotic. I get that. And we do not always have time for meal prepping and planning and executing the most healthy meals at all times. I know I was running around with my nanny kids a few months ago, and I didn't realize how hard it is to run around with multiple sports, multiple nights in a row at multiple times, all the things. So some things that you can do during those times are really making sure you've got high quality snacks in your pantry and you have a go bag. So it's essentially a lunchbox, or it's whatever you'd like to use, honestly. I like a lunchbox, and I keep it in my pantry of go snacks. And I don't have kids, it's just Mike and I. But when I know, I just keep it there, and I put some stuff in there. I've got some trail mixes, I got some beef sticks. I stash it away so we don't eat it on a regular basis. We put it in the back of the pantry. But I have a go bag, so if we're headed out the door and I know we're going for a long trip, I just grab it. Whether we eat it or not, but at least we have the options. Same thing in the fridge. Depending on what I have available, if I've got a bunch of single serve stuff, I'll keep those kind of in a lunchbox or in a container in the fridge so that I can just grab it and walk out the door. Because it's really nice if you're like, we're running around to 12 sports, or you're like, I have a client meeting and then I have to go to the gym and then I have to go here. Make yourself a go bag that you know always has things in it that's going to make your body feel good. So that is one of the things you can be doing. The other thing is, like I said, I traveled back in February, and one of the things I did is I did grocery pickup for the first time, and it was a game changer. Like, I did not realize, I thought, I love going to the grocery store. I am somebody who loves going to the grocery store, but I just had no bandwidth for it. But I knew we needed fresh food in the house. My body was craving it. I wanted it. So I did an Aldi grocery pickup. I believe it was like on Sunday. I scheduled it for 10 a.m. the next day. It was perfect. It was right in between clients. I pulled up. They put it in my car. I went home. I unpacked it. And the awesome part about that was, I think Meijer's is free. Aldi's, I think, was $1.99 for them to shop for you. And then they charged me 24 cents for bags. But that was worth my time and energy to go around. And it also was worth my budget at that time, to not go down the things you don't need aisle and be tempted to grab something that you're like, yeah, I could use that. It's like, if you've never been to Aldi and you don't know what aisle I'm talking about, it's like a TJ Maxx aisle where you walk in and there's just like all these fun things that you don't necessarily need, but they're fun and you could find a use for them. So it takes all of that out of it. So that's another great thing, is if you're somebody who's running into issues of, I just don't have time to grocery shop, or doing fast food because I don't have time, do grocery pickup. It's free. I know Kroger's got it. I believe almost every grocery store at this point has it. So do grocery pickup. The other thing you can do is, there's a ton of meal services out there, and it can look a variety of ways. So you've got Home Chef, you've got Blue Apron. Those are ones where you actually pick, or HelloFresh, I think it is. There may be a Home Chef one too, but HelloFresh and Blue Apron are the two that like come to mind the best for me. But those are ones where like you pick your meals and they send you the box of food with the ingredients. So you have to cook, but you don't do the grocery shopping, and everything's pre-portioned out, which is great if you're somebody who struggles with portion control. But then you have the meal service like Factor, which you've probably been seeing all over. And that is meals that are already pre-made for you that you just rewarm. I believe there's benefits to both. If you are somebody who's not a good cook or you don't like cooking, the boxes of food, the HelloFresh and the Blue Apron might be up your alley because they give you step-by-step directions. You can choose the length of time that you want these meals to take, and it takes a lot of guessing out of it. It's so great for a beginner cooker or somebody who just doesn't enjoy it. The Factor meals, I think, are a really great alternative for those people on the go who want something a little bit higher quality, who don't want to be eating out, but also don't have time to cook. And I'm not saying that's the option for feed the whole family. I'm more talking about that Factor, from my understanding on how it works, is it's better for like an individual or two partners per se. So if you are like, oh, we are really busy at lunches and we are both struggle to eat a healthy and quality lunch, maybe you look into a thing like Factor. They ship it to you. I don't know too much about it, but I've seen a lot of commercials and I've had a few clients that have used it in the past, and they've used it for a reason and it worked. But then we've moved into how can we become better at planning and prepping to make sure that we don't have to use a food service. So those are two really great options when it comes to meals on the go and kind of taking the guesswork out of it. When you are at a restaurant, we're going to touch on this as the last little thing, because when life is chaotic, we do choose fast food, we do choose Panera, we do choose going out to a restaurant because of the ease. Somebody else does it, we're exhausted, we're so decision fatigued that somebody else needs to do the things. I get it. I actually had a Panera breakfast sandwich in my way this morning because I made my own latte, but I had a Panera breakfast sandwich because I needed to not make breakfast. I wanted something different. I wanted somebody else to make me breakfast. And yeah, it wasn't fancy, but it was delicious and it was what I needed. So I understand that feeling. When we are going through and we are talking about restaurants, I always tell people, think about what you had earlier in your day or what you're going to be having later. I try to only eat out once per day if possible. So if you're on vacation and you're staying somewhere that doesn't have a kitchen, that's probably not ideal, which means you're probably going to be eating out 3 times a day. So thinking about that, at breakfast, can you choose things like eggs and toast and sausage, something very basic that doesn't have a lot of extra hidden calories in it? For lunch, can we choose something, making sure that we're not having deep fried at all meals? Can we have maybe a salad at lunch with some protein, or maybe we want a sandwich? Okay, what's on that sandwich? Can we get a vegetable on the side instead of French fries? Things like that are really easy swaps that we can do that we don't necessarily think about because it's a restaurant, it's a treat. But if you are traveling, in restaurant eating out is something that's going to be in rotation more frequently. It's really important that we do a good job of knowing our palm size serving of protein, our fist and our thumb, and knowing, okay, I haven't had any greens in a couple days. Can I get broccoli? Can I get green beans? Same at dinner time is if you've been having cheeseburgers, okay, can we choose something else? Can we get chicken today? Can we switch it up so that you're not just eating the same thing? Because, yeah, cheeseburger is balanced. You've got your fat, you got your carb, you got your burger. But you also have to remember there's a lot of extra hidden calories in there with the butters and the oils that, although it's balanced, does not mean it's the healthiest option. Does not mean I don't love a good burger. I love a good burger. But maybe that means instead of a burger, you do a grilled chicken sandwich. Or maybe that means you do, I'm trying to think. I feel like not very many restaurants, I feel like, have this anymore, but you can get like rice and veggies and chicken. Or I know you can do it with fish. You got salmon, your rice, and your veggies. Like, it sounds boring, but it's delicious and it's something your body is going to enjoy. So when you are eating out on a frequent basis, make sure that you think to, what did I eat earlier today? What am I missing in my diet that I need to fulfill in this meal? Or have I hit everything, and can this meal be something that I'm going to indulge in something that I just haven't had in a while. Maybe you like onion rings. Maybe you're going to have onion rings at dinner because you've got everything you needed earlier in that day. So when life is chaotic and nutrition in ourself tends to be pushed to the side, because it does, remember, you can go back to the basics. Go back to the basics. Look down at your plate. Become aware of what you are eating. Are you even getting the things in that you need? Are you noticing that you can't cook because you're just so exhausted and you're always on the road? Okay, is there a food service? Do we need to do grocery pickup? What needs to happen? There are so many alternatives out there instead of I'm just going to go out. There are so many things we can do internally in our household to make life easier. But we have to remember that, yes, when all the things are happening, we push ourselves down and we're like, oh, we'll worry about that later. When life slows down, we'll worry about us, we'll worry about our nutrition. Well, when we do that, we start to feel less alive. We start to feel less energy. We start to feel more sluggish. And that right there is going to mean in all these areas over here that we've decided to prioritize, we're not going to be able to perform our best. So as life changes in the springs, as we move into spring here, remember, it's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to focus on your nutrition. It's okay to let you take priority over one of those other balls up in the air. Because we can't have them all floating at the exact same level at all times. That's not how it works. We've got some up here, some here, some here. The goal is that none of them have fallen, that they're just all at different balances and levels. So as we wrap up here, I want to remind you that if you have somebody in your life that you've noticed that needs a little nutrition support when it comes to busy life, whether their kids have been having the flu for the last 6 weeks, which I feel like I've talked to people, they're like, we're sick again. And food is just not a priority because we don't feel well. Whether it's that or you're traveling, whatever it is, if you know a woman in your life who would benefit from listening to this episode, open up your phone, share this episode, and send them a message and let them know, hey, tune in, listen to this. It's got some great ideas for you. I know you're going on spring break here, and I want to make sure you've got everything you need to be successful. Or like, hey, I found this, and this important in the episode. Go listen and see. I want to know what you found important. That's the biggest thank you that you guys can give to me is by sharing this episode with others or really sharing any of our episodes. When I was talking about food logging, if that was interest to you and you haven't gone back and listened to episode 3, go back and listen to episode 3. It's a really great one. It talks about why the importance of food logging. And over the next couple months, we're going to dive more into nutrition because there's always more to learn. There's always different perspectives. So today we just talked about some of the things we can do to make life a little less chaotic, some tips, some tricks, and don't be afraid to try something you haven't done. A lot of these meal boxes, if you're tired of coming up with meal ideas, a lot of these meal boxes actually are not bad in pricing and they are pretty good. I've had them. I think the food's good. They're not bad in pricing. They're easy to cook. And they just add a little bit of variety to your life. Doesn't mean you're locked in for years, but maybe do it for a month or two and see if it works for you guys for something different. So with that, remember to take a minute to share this episode with somebody in your life who you think would benefit. And until next time, take some time, follow up, take action. Check out the show notes to join our Facebook group. And in that Facebook group, you can call your shot. You can ask questions. We had a step challenge last month that was amazing that we will be doing another step challenge. I'm going to be doing a high mileage and a low mileage step challenge. A little bit of pay-in, big buyout if you're in the top 3, things like that. So if you want to stay up to date on things that are happening in EmpowerHer Wellness, Get Fit With Me, that's our business name. Make sure to check out our Facebook group that you'll find in the show notes. So until next time, I'll talk to you then. Thank you for tuning in to the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and packed with actionable tips. Remember, your journey to becoming the strongest, most confident version of yourself is just beginning. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and join our community of empowered women. Until next time, stay strong and stay confident.